Every Friday night, the world's greatest wrestlers collide. This week, Hiroshi Tanahashi battles Kazuchika Okada.
What he's decided that he wants to do is try to pull Tanahashi's head straight off of his shoulders.
The finest wrestlers.
Sling blade lariat!
The king of sports.
Right through the canvas.
New Japan Pro Wrestling premieres Friday at 9 Eastern, right here on Access TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vintage Update. Myself, the Grime Minister Luke Force, joined as always by the good brother, Shotgun Shan. I think we should just skip the pageantry. We got a lot to get to in the next hour, Shotgun Shan. But first of all, how are you doing, my man?
I'm good, my friend. I'm primed and ready. It looks like our roster for this show is indeed quite stacked, despite the fact that there's not been a lot of earth-shattering news. There's been enough significant news that I think we're going to keep the listeners busy for the next hour.
Nonetheless, I know you were not able to see Fantasticomania, but I must say, I get up around 5 o'clock. That is the time that I wake up. So when I get up in the morning, on a Monday morning, and I get to watch live Fantasticomania as I drink my morning coffee, that's a pretty cool world we live in, don't you think?
I do. I think that's pretty amazing. I wish, now I'm generally up early too, but unfortunately I just didn't really have the time to sit down and watch it all. But I'm assuming it was good considering the way the product's been lately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a completely different thing. Again, just going back to what we've been talking about now for months, really, about the variety of New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you don't like this, you might like that. What Fantasticomania is, and this was not the only night of Fantasticomania. They did one last night on New Japan World as well. And they've done a few that have just been sort of dark shows, just house shows. But what it is that they have a working relationship, as they do with many promotions. But CMLL is their Mexican connection. And so this is basically a week-long tour of Japan where they bring in the big stars of CMLL. And they basically, with a lack of a better term, it's like they're paying homage to Lucha Libre. And they bring in all these guys, and for both of these two shows that were on New Japan World, the main event was not involving anyone from New Japan. It was both headlined by CMLL talent. So they really put them on display as sort of the big stars of the nights. And also there's like a real change, as you'll see. I know you're going to try to track this one down. And just to let everybody know, New Japan World is the greatest thing in the world, because I've already been on, and this show ended around 7 a.m. Our time, and it's now 10 a.m. our time, and the entire show is already up there. If you go to the matches from the past portion of the site, you will see it's already been uploaded. So it's there automatic. Whenever they do a show, it's pretty much there immediately. So what a great thing. But even a lot of the New Japan guys really changed their style up for these shows. Nakamura wears this really wild mask to the ring and dances even crazier and more animated than usual. And they change up their style of wrestling. Okada is a guy that's had a lot of experience in Mexico, as a lot of the guys have. But I think you'll notice a real difference in the way they work. And the guys that don't usually fly are flying. Guys do things like Naito wore a mask both nights. So again, a very cool show. But really what you need to see is the last two matches. And the second to last match being Ultimo Guerrero, Gran Guerrero, Kazuchika Okada, and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kota Ibushi, Atlantis, and Volador Jr. A very, very good match. As you can imagine, a lot of flying, a lot of dives. And the main event of this show today being La Sombra versus Mascara Dorada. And the fans all wear masks, and the commentators wear masks, and it's a really fun show. But again, this is not Wrestle Kingdom 9. This is a completely different kind of thing, a completely different style, and a completely different show.
But even just hearing the description, I mean, that's pretty awesome. Just the fact that they, as a company, would reach out to a completely different audience in a completely different style and treat it with the kind of respect that they would give to their own product, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
so I'll definitely be checking that out.
And one thing that I just popped huge for, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, they have the usual awesome ring announcer guy that they have with the bleach blonde stripe in his hair there. Yeah. He's always the guy that does the announcing for New Japan. But they also bring in the CMLL announcer, and they will both do the announcements, and then when they say the guy's name, they will say it together, like completely in sync. And it's just this really cool thing to hear these two different tones of voices saying the same name together. It's really cool. It's a really fun show. And again, if you go into it that way, and you don't go into it like comparing it to Wrestle Kingdom 9, It's great, and it's a lot of fun. And it's something your kids would like. A fun show. Check it out. But to stay on the New Japan tip, before we get into many other things on this show, we're going to talk about Randy Savage. Yes, it was announced because he, again, was expected all day long. WWE put the rumor out there and then said, there's rumors. There's rumors. Yeah, you're feeding the rumors. But Randy Savage will be going to the Hall of Fame. We'll get your opinion on that, Shan, and sort of the way that whole thing's been handled. We'll talk about, the Royal Rumble. It's coming up. Like, whether you're into the WWE product right now or not, this is the time of year where conversations at least need to be happening on shows like this. And we're going to sort of go through all that, some of the backstage stuff going on. And, much, much more. I think we're going to talk a bit about your buddy Alberto Del Rio. Looks like he's dipping his foot into yet another promotion. This guy is like working for everybody right now. So we'll talk about Alberto because we haven't really spoken a lot about him and all the places he seems to be popping up right now. But first of all, Shan, I know this is something you have seen, and I really am interested to get your thoughts on it. The debut episode of New Japan Pro Wrestling on Access TV. You have seen the episode by this point, yes?
I have, and I have to say, they really took care of some of those issues that you and I had pointed out with Wrestle Kingdom 9, just as far as making it accessible to a North American audience. Watching it, I noticed, first off, that everything's subtitled, which was really significant because I thought a lot of the things that Tanahashi said in his promos and in his post-match wrap-up were really significant and interesting and had a lot of insight. So I was thrilled with that. And I have to say that the announcing team was even better, maybe perhaps not better, but more comfortable than Stryker and JR. What did you think?
That's yeah. You know what? What happened is this. I know a lot of people have heard the praise from Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez and folks like that were given the advanced screening. We didn't get the advanced screening, unfortunately, yet. But anyway, what they got actually was episode 3 and not episode 1 that we watched. And the way this went with Mauro Ranallo and Josh Barnett, I agree. Fantastic commentary. But we'll sort of, contrast the Wrestle Kingdom 9 commentary to this commentary. But what they did is they basically in 4 days recorded 13 episodes in order. So what you saw, this first episode, that's the first thing they did. That was their warm-up. So if you thought that was good, you can imagine how the praise is coming in for, episode 3.
Can I interject and ask you a quick question just before we go any further?
Of course.
When we say that they recorded them in order, are these shows? I mean, I know that they're past shows. At least what they started with was from 2013. Do they run these shows in chronological order? Do you know, or are they going to be jumping around?
Unfortunately, the only problem being that New Japan was actually the ones that decided what would be aired, and they basically sent the tapes that they sent. So there's certain things throughout these episodes that are sort of being teased that they don't actually do because they weren't given those tapes. But yes, in order, and they're going to skip ahead quite a bit, obviously. And, it's basically not every show is going to be one big match. There are certain shows that have 1 or 2 matches, but definitely for the big main events that they're showing from 2013, 2014, it's pretty much going to be like you saw, like a 1-hour episode of one match. I really thought, first of all, just that the whole presentation of the show really did justice to New Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of people knock the stock music. A lot of people say it's super dated. It sounds like some 80s, Muzak. And they're right. But to me, there's something so charming about that. And there's something like, I don't need to hear what WWE gives me, this quote-unquote modern music. To me, there's a way wrestling's supposed to sound, and maybe it's the fact that we grew up in the 80s and stuff. But I really love the music in New Japan, and I thought that they kind of stuck to that. They didn't try to make it too, rap metal or whatever, like whatever WWE would do. And, a totally different presentation, just the way that they've laid this show out. Like, as a guy that's a fan of TV shows in general, not just wrestling, you must have been impressed with just the very straightforward layout of this show.
It was really straightforward, but it was super high gloss. I mean, it was beautiful to watch. I thought the entrances were really elaborate and interesting. And everyone, again, the thing that New Japan does so well is they really package their stars to look like stars in and of themselves. I love the way that everyone was presented and everything, top to bottom. I'd say this first episode was a real breath of fresh air and a really great start for them as far as their ongoing televised shows.
Believe it or not, when they were recording this, and in those 4 days, Meltzer was already getting calls from Access TV saying, "You're not going to believe these guys. You're not going to believe these announcers." This is unbelievable. And I mean, the hype was out even before anyone had seen anything because the people at Access were so excited. And I'm not going to put the blinders on and pretend like Access TV is not, kind of a shady network in a lot of ways. They've had a lot of really cool things over the years, and they seem to have fucked pretty much every one of them up. It seems like they have a strategy here, and at the very least, with everything they do, it seems like they're okay with dipping their toes in the water, not jumping right in, sort of feeling out the market. And I think this show and the fact that it's going to kind of go through 2013, the last 2 years in 2014, you're really, as a new fan, you're really going to feel caught up by the time this is over with.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's getting you introduced to the primary players, the big players, and the big stories. So it's a great primer anyway to bring you in, especially if you're going to be watching the pay-per-views as well, the current pay-per-views as well. It's a nice way to kind of reflect on what's going on there.
So again, this is one season of 13 episodes. Will this thing get renewed for another season? Lord hopes. But I mean, one would assume that once they've gotten caught up on 2014, the next logical step will be a recent show. Something that is not necessarily, obviously, a live, weekly Raw or anything like that, but a show that's caught up to the modern storylines and something that, reflects what you're going to be seeing if they're on pay-per-view again. Still don't know anything about the numbers from WK9, but it really kind of seems like a very good strategy. And even if the Access TV thing doesn't work, maybe that this could sort of branch off into, another network that sees this and wants to get involved with them. The commentary, it's different. Like it's not even almost fair to compare what Spreaker and JR did to this, because this was 100% sport. And you had two legitimate sports announcers, one of them who has competed, as they said, over 50 times in New Japan, and is an MMA legend in Josh Barnett. And then Mauro Ranallo. And man, this guy, Mauro Ranallo, he started in Stampede Wrestling. He was the announcer of Stampede Wrestling, and a BC guy, a Canadian guy, and somebody that, I respect a lot from the standpoint of he's a guy that suffers from bipolar disorder. He's been pretty open about that for a long time, had a lot of struggles. And to me, it's criminal that he has not been a bigger name in wrestling. But I mean, he's a guy that's calling like Floyd Mayweather fights right now. And I just loved the whole fact that everything about the announcing made it even feel even more like a sport.
That's the thing. That's the contrast you can draw with, the major criticisms that I've made about the WWE announce teams is that it very rarely has much to do with what's going on in the ring. They're either plugging something else, saying really stupid, irrelevant things like Jerry Lawler, again, not to hammer Jerry Lawler. He has his place. I'm not sure he should be talking for 3 hours about anything. But the real contrast there was that you had guys who were really legitimately paying attention to everything that was going on in the ring and adding relevant comments that would back up what you were watching, so that it really made the whole package more immersive. It was really immersive commentary. Let me say that. I love JR and I love Spreaker, and I thought they did a fantastic job at Wrestle Kingdom 9. But the one thing I will say, the team for the weekly show just felt really comfortable, really relevant, and really involved. And that's a step up from the excellence that JR and Spreaker brought in. And I'm sure JR and Spreaker will get there as well as they get more comfortable with the product. But it was tight. It was a tight show. Did you not feel that? Like it just, absolutely. There was no messing around. You were in it, and you weren't getting out till it was over.
No, absolutely. And one thing that was really interesting to me, and I thought this was pretty awesome from the standpoint of, if you've seen these matches before, which I have seen that match before that aired this week, but they had shots and angles for replays that weren't on the original airing. And the production value, like you say, was top notch. So you had all these awesome, like 3 or 4 different angles for the big spots that you didn't get on the original airing of this match. And that's cool to me. And I don't know if you heard this, Shan, but I mean, this is something that has been confirmed by Jeff, by Jim. Everybody's come out and said this. From the beginning of that pay-per-view till the end of that pay-per-view, they did not get one cue. They did not get one voice in their headphones. From the minute that show went on the air, they didn't even know when it was on the air. So you could say that maybe next time give them a few cues, but it's pretty cool the freedom that these guys got to go out there for 4 hours and not have one guy in the headphones saying, hey, say this. The thing that needs to change about that commentary team, to me, it's okay for Matt Stryker on Lucha Underground or even TNA or even WWE to do the whole inside baseball stuff. I'm marking out, bro. Strong style is the answer to is pro wrestling real? That kind of stuff has no business in New Japan. And that's stuff that you can do in other places, but New Japan is so serious where you can really get lost in one of their matches. And you can get that old feeling you used to get before you really knew the ins and outs of the business, and you can get lost in it and feel like, okay, maybe it's not real, but it feels real to me. And I felt like those comments sort of take you out of that. JR did it. JR did it too, though, Shan. Like he said stuff such that he shouldn't have said, like this brand or this genre. No, it's a sport. When you're talking about New Japan, you always got to refer to it as this sport. You don't refer to it as this genre, this product. No, this sport. And I thought Mauro and Josh 1,000% did that. Yeah,
that's it. That's what I mean when I said it was really immersive commentary, and there was nothing that pulled you out of that and made you go, oh, yeah, I'm watching a wrestling show. And it's the New Japan style too. It's just so different, and it's so the level of contact, or at least seeming contact, is so much higher than you see in WWE. And it's you're right. It gets the juices flowing. You start to feel like you're really watching a full-on competition.
And Mauro has said, like, he went into that calling that the same way he would call Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? So he just went into that calling it as much as a real shoot thing as it is, because let's face it too, New Japan in a lot of senses is a shoot, like for a lot of different things. Like a lot of the stories they tell about guys' histories are shoots, and the physicality, the punches, the chops, the kicks, the headbutts, that shit's real. Like, so it's pretty easy to suspend your disbelief is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I was really, really impressed. And again, to answer your question, it's not just going to be random. There is going to be a method to the madness of this series, and it's going to go in a certain order. I do know that there's at least 2 or 3 Prince Devitt matches that will be airing in this series. So that's kind of interesting. But again, would you not assume that if this gets picked up for another season and they get caught up on 2014, the next step is to start some kind of a show that's reflecting what's actually going on in the modern times?
I would think that that's where this would lead. I mean, I really think of this as just sort of an introduction, a casual introduction to the product for a North American audience, where, you can tune in and you can watch 1 hour and see what you think. And hopefully they put the best hour forward for you. So I really think it is just a stepping stone to something else, whether it's on Access or somewhere else.
Now, episode 3, the one that had been, reviewed in advance, that is the Invasion Attack match from later in 2013 between Okada and Tanahashi. And for people that know, yes, Tanahashi and Okada now have 3 wins each in this series and 1 draw. So I think you can pretty much assume who wins that match. But you got to see this episode. I got to see this episode. I'm hearing so much about it. And there's supposedly a Minoru Suzuki promo at the end of the show in subtitles that is just like absolutely one of the great promos of all time. As you're reading it, you're just like getting chills up your spine. But it's one thing that's so interesting too. We'll sort of get off this topic in a second. But one thing that's so interesting, and this is a shoot, when you see all the Tanahashi comments, the way that they talk is so completely different than anything in wrestling. It's so much deeper. For some reason, and this is really a big thing in Japanese wrestling, not just with the wrestlers but the fans, everything's about technique. If you ever go on New Japan Facebook or something like that and translate some of the comments in like, say they'll put a picture of a match and there'll be all these comments, the majority of the comments are fans talking about the techniques that these guys are using.
That was a fantastic thing about, as I was reading the translation of Tanahashi's interview, when he was talking about how much bigger Okada was than him, and how he had all the physical edges over him, and he said how he had to really stress technique. Every technique had to be perfect. It was the only way someone of his size could excel, was if his technique was important. And you're right, kept hammering that home again, that it was all about a certain level of technique and reverence for the process of the match itself. And that really did stand out, as definitive for that kind of promo.
And it's just amazing that a fan base can be so knowledgeable from that standpoint.
Yeah.
We're like, in North America, we're knowledgeable, quote unquote, smart marks about a lot of things, but I don't think you or I could really break down very many techniques that guys use in their matches and where they come from and who started them. And this is the kind of thing you read in the New Japan Facebook threads or in various like message boards. And I think that's just so cool. And it's, that's a shoot as well, because a lot of these guys, Okada is a perfect example, they will send guys away to other places like they did with him sending him to TNA. And the whole purpose of this is, yes, to improve techniques, to learn new techniques. so that you can apply them. And so they don't send them away because they don't have anything for them. They don't send them away because they don't see anything in them. They send them away because they see something in them, but they want them to learn more techniques. So again, really, really cool. And I'm so excited to watch the next episode and the one after and the one after. And it's going to be a really fun hour of TV. I think we should continue to review on Vintage Update as these shows roll out.
Why not? We're not really watching the WWE product much.
Well, then let's continue on the topic of not talking about WWE for a few minutes. Something else that we watched this week, you and I both were able to get our hands on it, was a UK documentary. I think it was actually made in Ireland, which would not be the UK. So my apologies to all the Irish folk. But an Irish-made documentary on Fergal Devitt, following him on his final tour of New Japan Pro Wrestling before joining the WWE. And we'll assume that most people listening to this have not seen the documentary. What did you think of this thing, and what were some of the things, again, to sort of tell the people that didn't see it, that stood out to you about this 50-minute documentary?
It was very intimate. I mean, it was intimate in a different way than what you would see in a highly produced WWE documentary or something like that. It really followed his day-to-day, really followed the whole process of these guys, living and working in Japan, the relationship with the fans, the relationship with their boss.
One thing that stood out to me, first of all, this guy's a star, and we're going to talk about that because, again, NXT, it seems like they're now ready to start moving things forward with Mr. Finn Balor, so we're going to see where this goes. But one thing that really stood out to me was just how likable all the guys, came off. Carl Anderson, funny guy, kind of one of those guys that's going to always be ribbing you no matter what, but a big softy, as you kind of saw near the end. Luke Gallows, I thought, Doc Gallows, he came off like the nicest teddy bear in the world, I thought. I've always heard he's a really good guy, but his facial hair is like Kenny Omega hair annoying. But
I agree. That was exactly what I was going to say. I loved what he was saying, and I loved the way he presented himself, but the more I looked at his face, I started to get angry.
Who would have thought Bad Luck Fale, that humongous Tongan with a blonde, skinny mohawk, was such a softie? They're sobbing at the end.
That's what I mean. It was so intimate. There was a level of intimacy that you can't fake, and it was just really, I think, from it being underproduced, just, a small team following him around. And Balor himself seemed very open. I don't know if he knew the team well that was doing the documentary, or if he just got very comfortable, very open with them. But it was nice, and it was a good timing because, for us, being involved with the New Japan product and now with Balor in WWE and moving in there, and seemingly as though there is a fresh group of talent on the horizon ready to be pushed in WWE soon. It was a nice little sort of bridge between the two products and reminding me that there are some good things coming in WWE.
So yeah, again, like you say, the relationship with the fans, and again, just the way that the whole thing was presented, the way that the Bullet Club really, and I've already heard this, but you really saw it for yourself. The Bullet Club really is a shoot, not in terms of them going around putting guns to people's heads, but a shoot in the sense of those guys really do live together and travel together, and they're together all the time. And they're in a country where they don't necessarily speak very much of the language, so obviously you're going to cling to the people you can communicate with. And there's a brotherhood. There really is truly a brotherhood with those guys, which I don't think you could say about the NWO. I think the NWO was a lot of random people thrown in there, and it just seems like with the Bullet Club, it really truly is a brotherhood and a friendship that's very deep. And as you saw at the end there in that last sort of the Last Supper, as it were, before he were to leave, emotions running very high, amongst a bunch of big macho guys. And again, that's the kind of thing that makes great television. And it kind of, I thought everybody came off really great. But anyway, I don't know if you kind of read ahead in NXT spoilers or anything, but it looks like they have done some kind of an ongoing tournament, week-to-week tournament type of gimmick, and the finals being Finn Balor versus Hideo Itami. The confusion being that I've heard that on the next special it will be Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. But to me, if there's one guy that can't miss in the developmental system, and I know a lot of the guys probably are not Vince's cup of tea, but I feel there's a bit of crossover appeal with Balor. And I feel like that is somebody that Vince hopefully sees money in.
I hope, but who knows? God knows with that man.
Saying throughout the show that Randy Savage is expected to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And obviously they were doing this to try to keep people viewing it because it was like a record rating for football going head-to-head with them. think like 30 million viewers or something, a record for cable. And, WWE actually held up okay in the ratings, but Randy Savage, they did announce he is going in. And obviously there's been a lot of talk for years now about this and some of the reasons why he may not have been going in. And Lanny Poffo had definitely shared some of the reasons. But what do you think, Shan? The announcement has now been made, and Hulk Hogan, the guy that will be inducting him. So,
well, it's a bit, it's a bit of a mixed bag there, isn't it? Because I'm thrilled that Randy Savage is going into the Hall of Fame. It's been a long time coming, obviously, and there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes, things going on there. Obviously, we know about tension between him and Vince, and also apparently the wish that he'd had that he will only go into the Hall of Fame if the whole family could go in, which I can see the WWE not necessarily being that interested in doing, seeing as Lanny was never a big deal in WWE really, and Angelo, wasn't really a WWE staple. So I'm thrilled he's going in. I hope it's well done. I'm puzzled by Hogan being chosen, other than I guess they figure that's the big money presenter. I think that would have been better to pick someone. I mean, it doesn't sound like he had a lot of close friends in wrestling, but there were people that he'd had significant moments with. I would have said Ricky Steamboat, maybe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There were a handful of people I would have picked before Hogan. It seems, I know there's all this story about Hogan and Savage burying the hatchet at the last moment before he died, but that, most of that's coming from Hulk, and you can't really take that as the gospel.
Are you telling me that everything he said on Talk is Jericho wasn't true, Shan?
I have a suspicion that some of it was not.
You haven't even heard it, but you can pretty much guarantee it wasn't.
I think there may be points where Hulk may have stretched things a little, or perhaps exaggerated.
Yes.
But
or completely rewritten history,
He rewrote history, he took a crazy pill, who knows. But yes, what do you think? You know what I mean? I'm so glad he's going in, and then I'm like, Hogan, I don't know. What do you think?
It is exactly what you said. They want to get those advanced ticket sales up. You have to have a big star that's going to be the person that's inducting him just to get those tickets moving. And that's 100% what this is. Again, it's for a number of reasons. I'm a little uncomfortable with it. Randy vehemently hated Hogan for the majority of his last, 10, 15 years of his life. And even if they did bury the hatchet.
Yeah, it seems, it kind of seems like it takes some of the honor out of it to pick someone who was a legitimate enemy and who there wasn't really a lot of well-documented information about this reconciliation or how, I feel uncomfortable, but shit, he's going in.
Even Lanny has come out and said, it's time for the fans to get this. Like, this is obviously something they want, and they shouldn't be deprived of this anymore. And let's face it, it's not a real Hall of Fame if Randy Savage is not in there. Yeah. Because, again, he's one of the biggest and most recognizable stars of all time in some of the great matches of all time. You can't write your history of the WWE or the WWF without Macho Man, and it's that simple. But, again, and it's not just the fact that they had this heat. It's the fact that, like you said, Hogan talks a lot of crap. Like, it could be a very touching speech. Maybe Hogan, and something will be, inside of him will be stirring, and he'll just decide to be honest. Or maybe he'll start telling fictitious stories. Like, I have no idea what to expect out of this.
Randy came rumbling up my driveway on a big hog, and he took off his belt, gave me his bandana, brother, and said, "This is for you, Hulk.
And by the way, Hulkster, it was all my fault."
Right? He's going to say something like that. He's going to be like, Randy admitted that I was 100% not in the wrong, and he was 100% in the wrong, and I respect him for that, brother.
Oh, God. No.
So, again, just from a credibility standpoint. But you know what? Take us out of this and just imagine just the most casual fan, doesn't know anything about this, has never heard Be a Man, which I feel sorry for you if you've never heard Be a Man, because that's
we should play it at the end of the show.
Oh, let's do it. Let's go out on a high note here with Be a Man, one of the great rap songs of all time, made by a white man with hair that looks like straw. But yeah, that's quite the category too. I tell you, there's a lot of competition, but Macho Man at the top. But yeah, it's from a casual fan's perspective. You got to understand that one of the big moments, Hogan and Macho, the Mega Powers, the big handshake, and then the whole awesome year-long program leading to the big match at Mania 5. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it does, in the hearts of fans, it has a special place.
Plus, it ends a bit of embarrassment for WWE because they really have to explain why Savage wasn't in there already. You know what I mean? He should have been in there for ages. So for them, at least they can go, well, now Savage is in. But
What were your thoughts on the most recent Macho Man documentary 3-disc DVD that's come out?
loved it. It was good. It was there was a lot of times when they'll do multiple different releases on the same star, especially when it's an older star where they're not doing anything new. You get a lot of redundancy, or they just kind of fill in, with stuff that you've seen before or stuff that's not that different. I thought the whole thing was different. The documentary itself was very touching. There was a lot of interesting stories in there, and it wasn't all flowers and candy. There was a lot of stuff they put in that was, I'm sure very real and gritty about what was going on in his life and him as a person, his personality. But at the same time, there was a lot of touching, really warm, really genuine stuff in it that I loved. And the matches that they selected to go on the supplemental discs were really interesting too. There were some interesting choices and some really cool matches in there that I hadn't seen before. I think overall it was a big success. I really hope that this and some of the others that they've done recently set the tone for where they're going with their DVD and Blu-ray releases, because there's been a real shift in quality. I think since like the Punk documentary and some of the others there, they've kind of taken a step up as far as presenting things in a more realistic way.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, they didn't get into things with Randy about why things fell apart. They were pretty vague and everything, but at the same time, I don't know. I felt like I accept this. This is okay. You don't want to get into it. If it's true, okay, and I'm not going to say what it is because everybody knows what it is. If it's true, I mean, I can't say I blame Vince for kind of taking as much time as he did to induct him, because I mean, that's obviously that's a pretty big wound on a person, especially when Randy and Vince were very, 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 very close. And I mean, Randy was one of the few that rode with Vince and Pat in the limo, in those last few years of his WWE career. He was with them all the time. He was like part of management, which was a complete mindfuck to watch that and watch them all pile out of a limousine in suits and Macho Man come out in his Gold's Gym, neon green with, some peach head wrap. It was pretty trippy to see, but I mean, there's even a video online actually of them all showing up at a Denny's like in the early 90s. I'm not even kidding. I'll put it on our site if you don't believe me. It's like him, Pat, and Briscoe, I think, and Savage. They all come out of this limo and they're all like going to a Denny's and somebody's filming it. And everybody, the rest of them completely like no sell that there's any fans around. And Macho's the only one that's like, hey brother, yeah, cool, like talking to people. And with that said, we had the opportunity to meet Randy, and we had the opportunity to meet Elizabeth as well. I'll never forget the way that he made me feel anyway as a young kid, because I mean, I've been to so many of these meet and greets where guys like look through you and they just seem like irritated that you're even there. And he certainly was not that way in any way, shape, or form.
That's true. He really was so personal with everybody.
That's the word. Yeah, absolutely. And I drew him a picture, and he pointed at the crotch, and he said, "That's good." And he's pointing at the 3 stars that I had in the front of the gotch. And
I think he was happy with how you may have exaggerated his groin in that photo. I'm not sure.
But anyway, so Macho Man going into the Hall of Fame. Any guesses maybe? Like, do you think there'll be another big name that will be going in this year? Is there anybody that kind of stands out to you that is about ready, is about due?
I don't think Undertaker. I know there was talk about Undertaker. I don't think they'll do Undertaker and Savage in the same year.
Yeah.
I think Savage is going to be the Ultimate Warrior of this year, and you're going to have some other people in there, but nobody else that they want to pay full reverence to is going to get inducted in the same year, I don't think. And there's nobody else that's kind of waiting around to get in. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's no one where you go, oh God, how come they're not in? This has got to be their year. There's a lot of people that should be in, but I think they're going to pepper them in over the years.
Yeah, and I would assume that Lanny and I'm pretty sure Randy's mother's still alive, so I would assume they will accept the award. It's a crying shame, though, that Macho Man's not going to be there to give the speech that everybody wants. That would have been one of the great moments in Hall of Fame history to see him come back. And
well, shit, man, bring Jay Lethal in. Let Jay Lethal take it.
Jay Lethal, wow, yeah, that would be all right, actually.
That would actually be really cool. I'm sorry, I think it would be cool. And if I do believe Savage did endorse his portrayal, didn't he?
Yeah, Jay Lethal did say that he was put on the phone. I think it was actually Kevin Nash that called Savage and put him on the phone with Jay Lethal.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the great moments, I'm sure, of his life. But yeah, he said, you're doing a great job. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, Randy's going in and belongs there. And, everything aside, bottom line is he belongs there. So now we're going to get that done this year. And now we can move forward. And like you say, I think they really need to sort of space out. They're not exactly making a lot of legends anymore. Yeah. So it's like, well, we better just space them out. Undertaker, you're going to need him down the line, to sell another Hall of Fame, maybe next year. So I wouldn't give away anyone too big. But sticking with the WWE forecast, what are you predicting on the horizon for 2015? And even to make it a little more immediate, what are you predicting at this point for the Royal Rumble this year?
Oh gosh, see, this is kind of a tricky question to answer, because there's what I hope is going to happen, and then there's what I fear is going to happen. What I fear is going to happen is we're going to be doing a replay of 2014. And what I hope is going to happen is that somebody in the office has kind of shaken their head a little bit and gone, whoa, I've fallen asleep at the wheel. We need to kind of get back on track. We've got the Rumble coming up, and the Rumble's going to set the tone for a lot of things. There's been talk forever that Roman Reigns was going to win. There's been so much talk about it that it's actually going to be anticlimactic if he does, regardless of how well he performs and regardless of who else is in it. The real concern right now is with the return of Daniel Bryan. And did you happen to see him on SmackDown?
I have not seen SmackDown yet, no, but I know that he did. He actually worked a short match with Kane, and then he worked again, right, later in the show?
They did a six-man that was excellent with Bryan, Ambrose, and Reigns against Kane, Big Show, and Rollins. That was excellent, and Bryan looked excellent.
That's what I was going to ask. How did he look? Cause
he looked great, and they didn't just sort of bring him in a little bit and for the hot tag or anything. He worked a large portion of the beginning of the match and the end as well, and he was very physical. I didn't see that he had any rust on him, and if anything, he was more intense than he had been before. So I was happy to see that. But here's the thing. As we head into the Royal Rumble, there's got to be talking in the office about whether they're going to put Reigns over, with it being a predictable win. And looking back, I just don't think that, in my gut, I feel like cooler heads will prevail and someone will say, we don't want a repeat of last year's Rumble. And I really feel like if Daniel Bryan's in the Rumble and he does not win and Roman Reigns does, the fans are going to be furious. If Daniel Bryan is not in the Rumble and Roman Reigns wins, the fans are going to be furious. The fear right now is I don't even have much fear for Daniel Bryan anymore, because the fans are really jumping on him again. I think they've been starved for someone to really support on their own and not being fed to them. My fear for Roman Reigns is that they go ahead with this and he gets damaged in a way that he can't come back from very easily, because his promos have been so sad. The Suffering Succotash and all the other horrible, stupid things they've got him saying. He has not evolved at all from the Shield days. The only real, the only real difference now is that he doesn't have the other two to kind of back him up. He still has the same entrance, which isn't nearly as cool when it's just him wandering in from the crowd. Same music, same gear, essentially. And where he was the brooding, mysterious guy who kind of talked with his fists, now he's got to kind of talk with his mouth and his fists are not on equal level. So, do you know what I mean? And that's not, I don't want anyone to misunderstand and think that I'm slamming Roman Reigns and saying he hasn't got tons of potential, because of course he does. We just aren't seeing much of it. And it's way too soon for him to try to do any of this, to take on what he would have to take on in the ring and to take on what he'd have to take on outside of the ring. I think he's in real danger. It's a really precarious time for Roman Reigns. Any interview I've read with him, he seems laid back. Like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm okay to go at my own pace. That's a great attitude for him. I just don't know if the office is sharing that. But I think Daniel Bryan could be the spoiler again this year, and I think they should probably keep their eyes open and keep their minds open as far as what they're going to do. I would love to see Bryan win and fight Brock Lesnar, although I'm not sure Lesnar is going to win this triple threat, which is a shame. I mean, the Lesnar championship reign has been a disaster. It was an experiment that's just been so disappointing. It sounded good to have a guy that was special and showed up every once in a while, but all it's really meant is we've had no title matches. He's shown up for little segments here and there, and he's fought John Cena twice. It's just, I'm worried about where this is going. If they decide they're going to just say, shit, we've got nobody else that the audience is hot about like this, let's get behind Daniel Bryan and just push him, even if it's just a stopgap, even if it's just so we can have a good Rumble and a good WrestleMania while we work out all these other things. If they do that, I think that the next few months are going to be good. If they don't, I think we're going to have a repeat of last year.
And I think we're going to be, everything you said I agree with, by the way. If they're stubborn about this and they say, we don't give a shit if he's not connecting, we don't give a shit if the crowd doesn't like him like Bryan, we don't give a shit if he doesn't even have a character yet. Like, this is the thing with the guy. What is his character? Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in that company that knows what Roman Reigns' character is.
His character is what he was in the Shield, but with nobody else doing the talking and no one else bringing the charisma in. So,
and you can tell from the way that they're scripting him, like the writers, Vince, nobody has a clue what his character is or what they want to do with him. They just know, look at him. He's the next guy. He's the next John Cena. Just look at him. It's like, no, you need to have your top guy, first of all, be someone that's connecting with the crowd. Even if it is a John Cena half and half thing, there needs to be something. And Roman Reigns doesn't have heat, period. His matches have not been great. I think he had a match a few weeks ago with Seth Rollins that I thought was like straight boring. I'll go as far as to say completely boring.
And for a Rollins match, that's,
Yeah, that takes something. You got to work hard for that. And it's not the time. You haven't figured out who he is. You haven't figured out what you want to do with him. To me, if this is something where this is not up for debate, he's winning and he's going to be the next champion, you've got to make him a heel. You've got to go into the Rumble with him and Bryan as the last two guys, and you have to use that reaction of the fans to get over Reigns as a heel. Because you could make him the top heel in one night. You put Paul Heyman with him as the promo, you've got something there.
Yeah, because, again, when they're talking about these comparisons about Roman Reigns as the next fill in the blank, if he's the next Rock, he needs to be a heel first to be interesting, because he's not interesting now. Rock was interesting because he was a cocky, obnoxious heel that got so cool you had to love him. Cena was a heel too. He was obnoxious. He was, the white rapper dude. And you really got passionate about hating him so that when he turned, the passion was already there. And you could say, this guy's really cool. I used to hate him. Now, for some reason, I like him. They're not doing that with Reigns. They're having him just be 1/3 of the Shield, and that's not adding up to a superstar in my books.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, if this is a situation where they just go forward and no, he's our new John Cena or he's our new babyface, and I mean, you could have this whole malaise that has happened now for months. How many months do you think it's been where people just don't give a shit about WWE anymore? I think it's been at least 3 months, I would say.
You know what? I'd go back to the time when people were getting frustrated with Daniel Bryan losing his title, not getting it back, the constant matches with Randy Orton somehow, pulling it off and teasing the fans that something's going to happen and then just abandoning it. So I'd go back further than that to the seeds of discontent being sown. But yeah, I agree. The past few months, they've just had nothing. And that's been the problem. I mean, the past year has been so rough for them. Punk walks out. Del Rio's gone. Both of those guys, as we'll talk about later, have gone on to what seems to be bigger and better things for them personally as far as their careers go. You've had injuries. You had Daniel Bryan, who was the spoiler last year to all their plans, come in, then get injured and have to leave. Then they've got an even bigger hole to fill. It's been a hard year, and my thought right now is they should be doing everything they can to have a good start to the year, whether it's with their plans or not.
And just, I mean, it's one of those things, we can sit back and the WWE can even say, you watch the TV and you hear the reaction and you think that's the be-all, end-all of the business. It's not. There's a lot more to it. I agree. With that said, your product looks really bad. It looks bad, and it puts a bad taste in the fans' mouth, and it also just kind of makes you less interested to see it if the crowd is dead for a show. Like, I mean, if you watch, it doesn't matter how good anything is. If the crowd is dead silent for an angle, it could be the best angle in the world. You're going to leave that and you're going to feel deflated. And that's the way it feels. I mean, just look at this past Monday and Rollins giving the curb stomp to Lesnar. You could hear a pin drop. And that's your big angle for the end of the show. That's like the big main event program. WWE needs to do something to get the crowd back into it and at least give the illusion that the crowd is into what they're presenting. Because right now, it's blatantly, it's glaringly obvious that the live crowd is not into what they are giving them. And I think that's a real problem, and you need to fix that. You need to fix that now. And I mean, again, why does it have to be this year for this guy? Why can't it be next year? Why can't, like you say, I mean, the great baby faces were great heels first. We talked about Macho Man. Macho Man was a kick-ass, like, white-hot heel before he could be the kick-ass, totally top baby face. And Piper, same thing. Jake Roberts, same thing. I mean, you got to be a great heel before you can be a great babyface. It's just one of those things. I mean, not always. There's certain guys, there's Steamboats, there's like Kota Ibushi, those type of guys that are just, they could be a babyface until the end of time. And they're just so likable. But I mean, not everybody's that guy. And Reigns, they got to find his personality. This guy has got personality. He does. They just have to be able to bring it out of him. They don't have a creative team that can do it. And Vince McMahon is now almost 70 years old. He's a micromanager. He is not willing to delegate. He wants to be in control and have his fingers on every single thing. And the bottom line is he doesn't have the touch anymore. And when is he going to hit that next home run? Where's it coming from? Because, I mean, if another year goes by like this, where's the business going to be? And another year and another year. You have to think about that. Like, WWE is kind of in a weird spot. It seems like the things that really catch on are completely by accident.
And they resent them. And they resent them
when they don't have anything else catching on, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what's so
Daniel
weird.
Bryan, these guys, they have it. It's there. Take it, man. Just take it. Even if it's only until you figure something else out. Take it and run with it. If the fans are excited about the things, these few things they really care passionately about, and they're getting them, it's going to bleed over into the rest of the show. Even the things they don't like as much, they're going to be up, and it's going to give you that momentum to move forward. But they'll cut things off at the knees because it doesn't with their plan, and their plan isn't working, and they don't have the wisdom and the ability to look at it and go, we need to really go with what's working, even if it's accidental.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks like they're just going to keep on repeating the same mistakes for right now. I mean, I would still assume Roman Reigns wins the Rumble, but that's like, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? Do we, like we say, do we turn him heel just so that the crowd, if they're going to boo, they might as well boo a heel and somebody might as well get some heat? But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, man. I mean, I don't understand. It seemed pretty obvious to me who should win the Rumble this year. It seems pretty obvious to me who's the most over guy in the company again.
And it's still the story. It's still part of that big story, because he did fight to get the title. Then he gets injured and disappears. He's gone. People miss him. He comes back. That story's not over yet.
No.
Finish the story. The fans will really, appreciate it.
So, anyway, moving along, and we'll just sort of wrap this show up. It's been a good hour here. But before we do, it was announced this week that Alberto Del Rio has joined yet another promotion, Shan. He will be a part of Lucha Underground moving forward, that being now Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, AAA, and there's even been talk, with Bellator wanting to bring him in, and it looks like the offer's on the table from Bellator for him to come in and fight MMA. It's a matter of whether he wants to go back to MMA and whether he wants to get back into shoot fighting, but the offer's there. This guy, believe it or not, and I mean, maybe you would believe it. Actually, I think you would. He's making more money since leaving WWE than he was under contract.
Good for him. Good for Del Rio. I'm a huge Del Rio fan. He deserves it. I know there are people that are hot and cold on him, and I know the people that don't really get him. But that's a guy that I think really anchored the mid-card and the upper mid-card for them when they were trying to push top guys. He's kind of filled in a hole there that not a lot of people could have, just based on his skill set, based on his personality, based on his work rate, based on what he was able to do, and based on the flavor that he brought that nobody else really did. I mean, he was funny, and he had great facials, and he was interesting, but he worked hard in the ring and just looked like he could kill you.
And he was held back, too. Like, he was held back for a lot of the stuff he can do.
Oh,
because, obviously WWE has their very strict rules of you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, but you can read this.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, Alberto, man, that guy, who would have thought? Between him and guys like AJ Styles, who took the big leap last year and said, I'm going to leave TNA and I'm going to go try my luck in New Japan and I'm going to try my luck as on the indies. Like, these guys are doing much better than they were under contract to the quote-unquote big two companies. And I think that's something that you're going to see potentially moving forward a lot more. I think guys are slowly letting that illusion dissolve that if we're not in WWE, we're not anything. If we're not in WWE, we're not going to be able to make good money. That's not true. And I'm very proud of the guy for being able to bounce back the way he did and to actually make more money this year than he did under WWE contract. It's a really unique situation that he's able to be in all these promotions at once. And TNA also made a play for him. They wanted him on that first episode of the rebooted Impact. And obviously that didn't happen. But, I mean, he's got all kinds of offers out. I'm hearing there's even potential of him being on some of the New Japan tours in 2015. So, I mean, Alberto's a guy that it's really cool. You don't see a lot of guys that are able to be in so many places at once. And maybe that will be the landscape in 2015 for more guys under WWE contract. Because let's face it, the money right now is shit.
Yeah, the thing is, too, I mean, this may be ultimately what WWE needs. As these guys start to get alternatives, even if the promotions that they're going to are not as direct competition, at least direct primary competition for WWE, if they're not really putting WWE in danger of losing money. Regardless of all that, as soon as guys have an alternative, you can't just snatch up these guys that you want. You can't just snatch up these guys that you go, well, I guess it's time for you to come up. Here's what we're going to give you. It's not going to be much, but at least you're in WWE. That's not going to hold anymore once they have alternatives. It's been so long since there was an alternative. And again, guys like AJ Styles, guys like Alberto Del Rio, they're making alternatives and making options for themselves. So it really could be interesting. The Impact, as it all goes full circle and comes back to WWE, could benefit them in the long run by forcing them to change, even just to hold the kind of people that they want in their company.
And a lot of the guys, too, I mean, they grew up on WWE. They grew up with their big dream of being, in the main event of WrestleMania. And WWE really takes advantage of that. And they really, use that to get whatever they can out of the guys. Even if they're not making good money, they're thinking, well, I'm living my dream. This is what I've always wanted to do. I mean, let's face it. If more New Japan pay-per-views happen, if there's more Wrestle Kingdoms, you're going to have a whole new generation of wrestling fans that want to headline the Tokyo Dome. And you've all of a sudden got that thing where, no, you can't just use that and hold that over me of my dream of being, at WrestleMania. No, I've got, you've got a new generation of a cooler product, and there's other options. There's other things you could do. And I mean, the Young Bucks, like you say, they think that they can just sort of call up anybody and say, okay, we're ready to bring you in now. We're going to send you to developmental and, we'll give you a couple $100 or whatever. It's like, I think the Young Bucks are a perfect example of a team, and an act that were just like, we don't need this. Like, we're doing good. We're booked everywhere right now. We can work every day if we want to. And we come to New Japan and we get treated well. We get treated like stars. We get to have these great openers to the pay-per-views of 20 minutes, and they let us do our shit. It's like, there is another option, and you're going to see that more and more. And I mean, I thought that was pretty cool that the Bucks just said, we're not interested.
That's the beauty of it. And that's, like I said, as things change, even while WWE tries to hold on to doing things the way they've been doing them, I think that they're going to change in spite of them. And I think that the whole landscape of professional wrestling will change with different options for different people. And ultimately, it'll improve wrestling in general, and hopefully it'll improve WWE by osmosis, maybe. I don't know.
But anyway, we're all out of time. It's been a great show. Lots to talk about, again, moving forward for next week. We'll have another episode of New Japan on Access TV to review. So between NXT, between Lucha Underground, that's 3 one-hour shows. I think that's better than watching Raw. So if you just want 3 hours of wrestling, good wrestling, again, I suggest New Japan on Access TV, Lucha Underground, and NXT. There's your 3 hours of wrestling a week. You don't need any more than that. But anyway, from myself, from Shotgun Shan, it's been great to talk to you, my man. But from myself, from Shotgun Shan, want to say peace, love, Wrestling Audio Revolution, and as always, promotional consideration is paid for by the following.
Whatever they call you, I'm coming after you, you coward. I'm digging it down, open leg, you set it off. Set it off. Used to be hard hog, now you done turned soft. Doing telephone commercials, I seen ya. Dancing and tight as a ballerina. I knew all along you had those tendencies. Cause you've been running from macho like I got a disease. Dude, please, your pay-per-view event was a joke. You're avoiding Randy Savage cause you know you can smoke. Come on, that phony fight the rock spank you fast. But when I challenge him to a real fight, he passed. I called him out, but the punk was scared to go. It was a charity event, but the hall didn't show. Hollywood Hulkster, you're at the end of your rope. And I'ma kick you in the butt and wash your mouth out with soap. Cause, like Rodney Dangerfield, you get no respect. So come on, Hulk, let's wreck so I can put you in check. Be a man, Hulk. Come on, don't be scared. You're running from macho, that's what I laugh. Cause your movies and your acting skills are both trash. Your movie straight to video, the box office can't stand. While I got myself a feature role in Spider-Man. You hide from man, but when I find you, it's on. And when I slam it to the dirt, you wish you was never born. I smell a coward, is that you, Hogan? My dude's gonna kick your butt, there's a slogan. You tried to ignore me thinking I'll go away, but I'ma keep on messing with you, dude, day after day. And once you step two, macho you through. The joke's on you, so Hulk, what you gonna do? Probably nothing, cause you're a real big punk. You call my dad up on the phone, man, use a chunk. Cause if you really got static, take it up with me. And I'll punk your butt out for the world to see. Be a man, Hulk. Come on, don't be scared. You're running from macho, that's what I heard. Be a man, Hogan. Come on, don't be a chump. I never thought Hulk would go out like a punk. Be a man, Hulk. Come on, don't be scared. You're running from macho, that's what I heard. Be a man, Hogan. Boy, use a chump. Cause Hulk Hogan is a real big punk. Be a man, Hulk. Come on, don't be scared. You're running from macho, that's what I heard. Be a man, Hogan. Come on, don't be a chump. I never thought Hulk would go out like a punk. Be a man, Hulk. Come on, don't be scared. You're running from macho, that's what I heard. Be a man, Hogan. Boy, use a chump. Cause Hulk Hogan is a real big punk.